We live in a world that is forever moving. We eat, sleep, and we work. We pay our bills, we pay our taxes, and we all have our role to play in society. However we choose to live our lives, we all have our roles to play. Whether we flip burgers in fast food restaurants to feed the everyday people, or we save lives by working as doctors or nurses in hospitals, life moves forward even when we're not present. So, you live your life, but what if you could live a second life? For years, people have been escaping the world to dive into another life, whether it be through tabletop role-playing games like Dungeons & Dragons, or through metaverses and social spaces like Second Life, or immersing yourselves in RPGs like the Elder Scrolls and the Fallout video games, or through the MMORPG genre video games like World of Warcraft. I'm Kai Evans, a student filmmaker who set out to learn and introduce the world to the world of roleplay and metaverses. Just how close are we to films like Ready Player One and Free Guy in terms of being close to living a second life in a virtual world? And do worlds exist out there that mirror our own reality? Do they possess any benefits that help us in the real world? Do they pose any dangers to us? Before we get into that, however, we must start from the beginning.
It's a fantasy role-playing game, and it's a refined version of the pretend games we all play as kids. The books tell how to play, describing all the kinds of characters the player can be, and the monsters that will be met on each imaginary adventure. Some players, like these boys, like to make up their own fantasy voyages. There's no board or pieces, it's all in the imagination.
In the early 1970s, a vastly popular tabletop board game started making the waves across the world, titled Dungeons & Dragons. In this game, you and a party of players make up a set of characters, with each character making up their own backstory. They give them a set of skills and traits, describe their personality and looks, and then band together as a dungeon master leads the story and the game's direction, and it's up to the players to determine how the story unfolds, through their actions, skills, roleplay capabilities, and dice rolls. Even to this day, Dungeons & Dragons is popular as ever. It's because of the success of this tabletop game. As time progressed, more ways for people to roleplay were incorporated into other mediums, such as video games. The term roleplay became a massive genre within gaming, being defined as role-playing games. Games from the Elder Scrolls series and the Fallout series, for example, follow a very similar structure, putting points into skill trees using dice rolls or turn-based mechanics, and creating a character and going through a story and making choices which can affect the outcome.
You can actually play a real-time computer game against an opponent anywhere in the country. Wendy Woods tells us how.
This is the Island of Kismai, a Dungeons & Dragons type of game, and Michael Orkin, a statistician who's designed and played his share of games, is playing it for the first time with two other people 2,000 miles away in real time via the CompuServe network. This is an example of what's called a multi-user game. Several people can be online playing any one game simultaneously.
Other genres dawning the roleplay titles started cropping up, such as MMORPGs, or massive multiplayer online role-playing games. Popular titles of today's age like World of Warcraft and RuneScape use similar systems put in place as other RPGs. However, these games cater to a world filled with thousands of players, as opposed to just a table of a few players or a single player RPG where the world has been made for a sole player to delve into. MMORPGs often boasted massive worlds with lots of activities and often encouraged players to band together to finish quests and engage in events for high rewards. However, not everyone is looking for a grand adventure. Not everyone is looking for skill trees and other elements that the RPG genre carries with it, such as role-playing as someone they're not. Some people are just looking for more ways to express themselves and their identities. Some people are looking for more ways to socialize and meet new people. But just how do people do this without playing MMOs? So, what is a metaverse? To put it simply, metaverses are social spaces with a fixation on player expression. They don't have levels or skills or player progression or follow a story. Metaverses were primarily made for socialization and heavily focuses on avatar customization, usually through a massive wardrobe selection of clothes and character creation options, with most metaverses having a lot of space customization, such as rooms or house or social space decorating options to allow further player expression. These spaces are often referred to as glorified chat rooms. Second Life, released in 2003, is often referred to as the first metaverse which allowed these things, having both social spaces, a focus on player communication and player expression through clothing and space customization, as well as an intuitive character creator. People would build entire worlds using the game's built-in toolset, creating nightclubs, player homes, restaurants, shopping malls, and even theme parks, as well as other variety of spaces for people to hang out in. Other games which boasted these elements came out around the same time period, such as Habbo Hotel, which is argued to be the first true metaverse, with its release in 2000. This game, however, was more catered towards a child-friendly audience. Habbo Hotel incorporated both player customization and space customization, and primarily focused on the social aspect, much like Second Life did. So why am I talking about these things, you may wonder? Well, imagine a world where the elements of both metaverses and role-playing were combined. Imagine a world where reality itself is somewhat mimicked, a game which incorporates the same level of player expression of Second Life through space and character customization. Imagine a world where you get to make a character, make a personality, think about your backstory as a character, and then take that character into a massive world with other characters like you would in a Dungeons & Dragons campaign, but on an MMO scale. Grand Theft Auto 5, a game with a rich, massive world based off the real-world Los Angeles. GTA 5 is a game full of life. The game boasts a massive focus on player expression through the thousands of clothing items to an incredible selection of car customization. GTA 5 also has wildlife, with cats and dogs walking the streets to deer and boar in the forests of Paleto Bay. GTA 5 and its online portion of GTA Online has centered focus on the player and what happens around the player as they go around and commit various crimes. But what if, instead of the universe being centered around you, what if you became part of the universe itself? FiveM is a modification for Grand Theft Auto 5, enabling you to play multiplayer on customized dedicated servers. These servers use the base game of Grand Theft Auto 5 and its assets, its world, its cars, its player customization, and uses the game as a foundation point to create servers. Some servers are just mini-games like cops and robbers and races. However, the one aspect of FiveM that sticks out the most is its role-playing servers, which FiveM has a variety of. There are hundreds to choose from, each packaged with its own custom content and player base. One of these servers I've spent a lot of time in, learned about its world, spoke to its community and what it has to offer. This server is Badlands RP. Badlands RP is a roleplay server that has a max player count of 200. This is 200 players within the city at any given time, and often peaks in player count every day without fail. What makes Badlands RP special is its wide range of things it offers, and its focus on player expression through the use of custom clothing, custom cars, player housing, decorating, and its heavy focus on player-to-player communication, much like Second Life as a metaverse offers. But Badlands offers other ways for the player to roleplay. You make a character, you create a personality for that character, you use the vast catalogue of clothing and the character creator to give yourself an identity. You then can take that character into the world itself. From that point on, the world is yours. Whatever you want to do, it's completely possible within this world. To further emphasize this point, I have spoken to various members of the community of players, and they've got quite a few things to express and explain to you of just what RP is and what roleplay means to them, and what is possible within this world.
I'm James Knight. I work at Weasel News. I'm the director of operations there and the lead anchor, and I've been on Badlands for about 2 years.
I play the character Johnny Silverhand, although out of city I'm known as Tony. I work at Flywheels as a manager in the city. I've been with Badlands RP for probably just north of 4 to 5 years at this point.
My name is Krister, and my character is Krister Solo. My jobs are I'm a chief paramedic with the LSFD. I've been in Badlands for 14 months.
My name is Jasper Reaper. I work at the FiveM as a technician. I'm a manager, a part-timer mechanic.
Badlands RP has an incredible amount of things to do for you to immerse yourself into the world and roleplay in any way you wish. You can do a variety of jobs and activities. You can lead any life you want. Anything is possible. It has the same scale as an MMORPG, but it also has the same features that a metaverse also has. Through the variety of ways you can socialize and encourage to make friends and get involved in communities, you're also allowed to express yourself through car customization, character customization through clothes and the character creator, much like Second Life's features. And when I say you're encouraged to roleplay, it's not like Dungeons and Dragons where you have skill trees and typical RPG features. You're encouraged to roleplay, you're creating a character, you're making a story, and your story is going as you're playing. Every single character in the city is role-playing as someone. Each character has a story to tell.
So roleplay, obviously you play a role. I like to think of it as kind of like how when somebody is writing a book or a movie, you have all your characters in the book or the movie that you have to write for. In roleplay, you specifically only have one character you have to write for, and everybody else writes for the other characters. So it's that kind of fantasy aspect of, suspension of disbelief and being whatever you want to be.
There's people who have the job of scooping poop. There's people who have the job of working at a general store like a 24/7 market. There's people who can rob stores. There's people who partake into the MC life. There's endless possibilities when it comes to RP and what kind of life you want your character to have.
From being a construction worker, being a police officer, to being a paramedic, to working in a nightclub, to owning your own business, being a mechanic. Possibilities are quite literally endless with the amount of things that you can do in the city.
This in two separate categories, right? So there is city jobs, which is stuff that has been made obviously by the developmental team and has been around for quite a while. It's not going to make you a ton of money, but it's very good for the people who are newcomers to RP, people who, stuff of that category. People who are newer to RP can do those jobs, make a little bit of money and not be bothered so much by people, and just kind of get a feel for the general idea of what they're doing in the city. Then there's jobs where you're working for a particular business that's ran by somebody, and that's where you can really start socially interacting with others, getting to know people, their characters, and even make friends out of the city past that point. You know what I mean? Like that's where the socializing really comes in.
An example of this would be, I own the flywheels, the mechanic shop. I have managers, I have mechanics, I have supervisors. I have an actual ranking structure for my employees. I have positions for people. They get paid for their job. They have a salary. And this is all within a virtual world. None of this is real.
There's a ton of stuff you can do in the state, many different types of jobs. Legally speaking, there's working at Pearls. There's a bunch of bars you can go to. There's Tequila La, there's Homebrew, the Galaxy Nightclub, Bahama Mamas. There's people who even act as legal representatives, lawyers, judges, consultants, police officers, obviously, fire department, EMS. EMS is really important. When you get hurt in Badlands, you go down and you need someone to save your life. There's car dealerships. PDM has regular car meets. Boathouse caters to a lot of the more more rural crowd. Depending on where you're doing your role play, the level of realism can be drastically different. I wouldn't say it's 100% realistic. There's a lot of differences. If you get hurt, you're not going to die permanently unless you choose to or you're forced to by the state. In order to work for, say, the police department, you have to go through training. You have to do paperwork. You have to, like, if you pull somebody over, give them a ticket, you have to log that in the system or else you'll be fired. Like, realism to that degree.
Criminal roleplay is a thing, gang roleplay is a thing. Like, the world isn't like all amazing and happy. Like, there is people out there who will rob you on the street at gunpoint. There is people who deal in drugs, people who run gangs, own territory, fight with other gangs, people who trade guns and that sort of thing. Keep in mind, this is America, so like, you have like motorcycle clubs like Lost MC. You have the Angels of Death Motorcycle Club. You have gangs like the Eastside Vargos, the Ballers, Forum Drive families. All of these gangs have their own identity, their own looks. And there's still elements of Grand Theft Auto that are in here, like the shooting, you know, the combat, the driving, obviously the police chases. Like, there's elements of Grand Theft Auto mixed in there with the metaverse stuff, as well as the MMORPG stuff as well. And obviously the biggest factor of that is roleplay. Like, it's all mashed together to make this living, breathing world. And criminal RP has its factors, you know, like, there is real consequences for getting caught by the police.
And you get caught, you go to prison. They sentence you, a judge sentences you, and you go to prison, and you have to spend your time in prison. If you are arrested by a police officer, they will detail out a report on why you were arrested. You will then be taken by a corrections officer to a judge who will sentence you to fair time for your crimes. Then a DOJ officer will take you to prison where you will serve your time over the course of months. The terminology is a little different in some cases. So to make it seem more realistic, you will be given a sentence of, say, 60 months. In reality, that's only 60 minutes. But serving that time while in the state with everything else that's going on leaves you left out. You are, in fact, actively in prison.
This is probably the closest we're going to get to a real-life simulation. You know, we're all these virtual actors acting out our characters, but this world is very real. And when you compare it to real life, you know, you work at Burger Shot, you can compare it to McDonald's. Paramedics have their jobs, and, you know, just like the real world paramedics, everything is replicated. I also really think that the city has some amazing benefits for people who struggle with anxiety and with socializing. I think the city is a good way to practice those things, especially communication.
I think roleplay can help tremendously in a person's everyday life too. You can practice, if you will. You can also build real life skills. You can learn how to do bookkeeping because you need to do that for a business that you work in. You can learn leadership skills because of directing different activities in the state. These things might not directly apply to something like, say, a job interview, but when you're asked certain questions about your leadership qualities or your social skills, you might feel more confident in actually answering those types of questions because you've had time to develop those skills online.
I have learned so many valuable lessons over the years from Badlands, whether it's be about RP or rules or even just life in general, because you could learn a lot of shit here, but at the same time, there's a lot of unparalleled drama that can come out of nowhere, you know, so you really got to be careful who you associate yourself with inside of like RP, because if drama's not your gig and you find yourself in circumstances where you're associating with people who are all about drama, you're not going to have a good time. You're going to want out of it.
Roleplay can lead to problems though. if you let it get out of hand or you become too addicted to it, you can find that you're spending a lot more time in roleplay than your life. Things like in-character drama can bleed out into other social channels like Discord or, other direct messaging platforms. And some people can take it a little too seriously. I understand that when somebody does something in character, that they are not actually talking to me, they are talking to my character. And at the end of the day, if I feel bothered by it, I should just remove myself from that situation. Some people do not have this point of view, though, and they take things very seriously, whether they're in character or out.
I can understand the addiction part of the city because I spend quite a lot of time here. The city is my way of socializing because I don't really go outside much. I don't really do much other than go into university and stuff. So my time is mostly spent in the city, socializing with my friends in the city. And like, drama can happen, things can happen. Addiction is a thing because I do spend a lot of time there. Drama is drama. It happens. It comes and goes, but it comes with the territory. This city is replicating quite a lot of real life, and it's easy to let your own feelings get involved with the city. It can happen. It's just one of those things. Regardless of the drama, though, the city means a lot. Like, roleplay means a lot to me because it allows me to step into the shoes of someone else for a moment, take a break from my current life. Roleplay means quite a lot to me in that regard, and the good outweighs the bad by millions.
It's an escape from reality. A lot of people are overwhelmed with the state of things and the way the world is, the real world. And some people find a little bit of stress reduction by making a character in a video game with whatever personality type they want, you know what I mean? Whatever quirks that they want. Obviously, they can't be a jack of all trades, but the socializing aspect comes in. You get to meet new people, thus make new friends. You get to actually cater towards something once you start, getting jobs and stuff like that. It's everlasting.
I made a lot of friends there at the Badlands. I'm here for the friends, basically, like.
Roleplay to me is an escape from reality, but still reality. For me, it calms me down. It makes me feel needed in another sense.
The question comes back to you, the audience. Now that you're enlightened on what roleplay is and what it consists of, how do you feel about virtual worlds, metaverses, and about roleplay as a whole? Is this something that you want to get involved in, or is this something that you'd rather avoid? Is the line between virtual reality and reality that close? Or is this just Grand Theft Auto with extra steps?